Here we go. Here we go. We are on live now with a special edition of Bible Basics. What's up, everybody? I see you guys jumping on in. Make sure you swipe to the right, share this, let everybody know that you are in on Periscope with us tonight for a special Thursday edition of Bible Basics. Hey, what's up, Wanda? I'm seeing you guys trickling on in. We're sharing it right on Facebook. I'm going to go even now to my Facebook page and share it so that we make sure the message is getting out there, because we want everybody to jump in with us for our special edition. What's up, Frank? Of our Bible Basics. Usually we're here on Wednesdays, but we changed it up a little bit this week because of Fresh Fire. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Of course, hey, Mr. Mary, let me guys know. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Fresh Fire was amazing. What's up, Tanika? I see you guys are in here. Make sure you let me know where you're watching from. If you're a member of New Psalmist or another church in Baltimore, or if you're in another city, another state, let me know you're watching so we can give you a shout out and let everybody know who's in with us today for Bible Basics. I'm sharing. Make sure, of course, you share it on Twitter and Facebook, even on Instagram if you want. I'm sharing it out right now because we are going to have a great time in our Bible study. Oh, yeah, Ava is upstairs. She just finished eating. I don't know why she up so late tonight. You know, she's still on a high from Fresh Fire. Oh, we got somebody from, what's up, Kev from PG. Yeah, man, Ava's still on a high from Fresh Fire, so she up past her bedtime. We got to get her back on her schedule. There are parents out there, you know how that goes. Got to get the kids back on their schedule. But yeah, I'm sharing this out right now on Facebook. So we make sure the message gets there. Retweeting it on Twitter. Everybody join in with us. Make sure you let all your friends and family members know that we are in. Hey, what's up, Dad? Yes, Ava does need a Fitbit. Bishop, we got to get her a Fitbit. She's going to beat us all, get more steps, because Ava's just rolling. She gets out there, starts walking, and she walks in the room like she owns the place. I said, Ava, you don't pay no mortgage in this house. You better calm down. But you know how it's fun having a 15-month-old in the house. So let's see you guys trickling in, of course. Make sure you invite your followers. Swipe right to the right. Click on share. You can invite all your followers on Periscope. And you can also share it on Twitter. Let everybody know that you are in not the break room. That's where Bishop goes. No, you watching Bible Basics at 8 o'clock on Thursday this week. Changing up a little bit, but we wanted to make sure we had this time to share. We got a special lesson tonight. It's going to be a little interactive, so I'll get you guys in there typing and sharing and everything so that we can get some feedback. We're going to talk about Fresh Fire, and we're also going to take a look at some of the stuff that happens in Exodus as we are moving right along through this Bible study in this first module. Hope you guys have been enjoying this. You know, it's been fun. We started in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And we've been moving right along the book of Genesis. We looked at that for the first 3 weeks. Then last week we moved in to Exodus, looking at Moses. And Ava, what are you doing down here? Hey, see, I tell you, this little person, she need to go upstairs, get in that crib. I tell you, these kids don't know their bedtime. But we moved on to Ava. You getting on the Periscope? Ava's coming for the Periscope, so she just messed up. Hey, what's up, Sammy? Ava, come on, Ava. Since you done made all the noise, you might as well get in the shot. Come on. She's walking around the basement like she owns the place. Ava, say hi to everybody. Say hi. There we go. Ava, you gonna say anything before you go to bed? Say hi. Okay. Good night. Say night, world. Say hi, Pop Pop. Pop Pop just say hey. Say Pop Pop. Papa. Okay. Good night. Mwah. I love you. Papa. Say bye-bye. You can say bye-bye? Okay. Ava had enough. Alrighty. I don't know. Ava get more hearts than me. I tell you, Ava, you may have to go in here more often. All right, Ava's now going to bed. So we get back to our Bible study. Everybody say bye-bye, Ava. Bye-bye. Say bye-bye. She's waving. She's waving as her mother takes up the steps. My wife is taking on the bed. So yeah, as I was saying before Ava interrupted us, we started off in Genesis looking at the creation story, then right on to the covenant that God made with Abraham and how that line led us right into the book of Exodus, looking at the story of Moses and how Moses was born after the decree had gone out that all of the Hebrew boys were to be killed upon birth. His mother had faith and put him in a basket, sent him down the river, and God so ordained it that Pharaoh's daughter picked him up. He was raised in the palace for 40 years. Then one day, oh, we got somebody from LA. What's up? From Los Angeles. Then one day, Moses was out, saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew. He killed the Egyptian and ran away. And from that day, his life changed forever. He went out. And then as he was out there, he married Zipporah, and he saw one day he was out with cattle, came across a burning bush, and he encountered God. And God put a calling on his life, gave him an assignment to go back and so that he could free his people. And that's where we left off last week. And we're going to tie that right into Fresh Fire. So we'll go ahead and get rolling. Of course, as you guys know, I'm Minister Joshua Thomas, the Director of Media and also the leader of the Millennial Ministry at the New Psalmist Baptist Church right here in Baltimore, Maryland, where Bishop Walter Scott Thomas Sr. is the pastor. I'm so excited about this new opportunity to share with you guys in this Bible Basics class. What's up, Trini? In this Bible Basics class, Bible study, looking at the foundation, building up the roots of our faith so that we understand what it is that God has called us to do, understand who it is that God has called us to be, and see God's history and his revelation to his people as given us in the Holy Word of God, the Holy Bible. So a couple of announcements. Last week, I shared with you guys, we had planned to have Surrender on this coming Saturday, but we're going to push Surrender back because we had such a powerful encounter in Fresh Fire where it was so dynamic, so powerful. We wanted to, instead of trying to do too much in 1 week, we said let's put all our focus right in Fresh Fire, and we'll come back and reschedule a time for Fresh Fire. Oh, we got some from Little Rock, Arkansas with us today. Liberty Hill Baptist Church. Amen. Thanks for joining in with us on Periscope. So we're going to push Surrender back. We'll get you updates and dates when that's come. I encourage you to go and follow the Millennial Facebook page. It's once again facebook.com/groups/MPBCMM. If you're already on Facebook, you can just search Millennial Ministry NP. It'll pop right up. Request to join. We'll add you so you get all the updates on everything that's coming and when we release the next days for Surrender and all the activities that are coming up with the Millennial Ministry. We'll be showing them right there. And of course, always you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter and right here on Periscope at MINJ Thomas. I encourage you, if you're not following me now, swipe to the right, click on my picture, and just click follow so that way you get all the updates for whenever we go live with our Bible study sessions or whenever we're just showing you what's going on around New Psalmist, what's going on around the city, what's going on in my life. Me and Ava may be out somewhere, and I'll just show Ava because Ava gets all the hearts. So I just throw Ava up. A couple weeks ago, we were out at the pumpkin patch, about a month ago, out of the pumpkin patch, and I just showed Ava going out to find her first pumpkin. So little things like that showing what's going on around in life here. So that's all the announcements. So let's get into the lesson. Today's lesson is going to be different than our first few where we just look at the Bible. But today we're going to bring in Fresh Fire. If you were at Fresh Fire this week at New Psalmist, just send up the hearts. I want to see who was at Fresh Fire this week, who enjoyed that encounter. If you can comment, just write I was there, put up the emoji with your hand. I want to see how many people we have on today that were in Fresh Fire this week at New Psalmist. Fresh Fire was an experience like no other. We have been planning since July for Fresh Fire. Bishop even began to drip the vision at the end of last year, talking about what our fall experience would be like. And it was the charge of Dr. Diane Roberts and I on the staff to put together the framework for what this encounter would look like. We began planning in July, the beginning of July. I had my notes from July 10th when we met in my office and wrote on my wall all the ideas we had for what would make this a dynamic encounter. And yesterday, after the last service, I sat down and looked at the notes we had. and saw just how God took those initial plans, breathed freshly on them, and expanded into an experience like nothing we could have ever anticipated or nothing we could have ever imagined. It was powerful. I encourage you that as soon as this Periscope is over, if you missed any of the nights, and even if you were there, go right to www.newpsalmist.org. Click on the Media Center link. Right at the top it says Media. Click on Media, then Media Center. And right down at the bottom of that page, you can watch all 3 nights of Fresh Fire right there on the web. So if you missed any of it, you can go and watch it right now and relive the fresh fire in your own life. So I encourage you to do that as soon as we finish up today. But the theme of Fresh Fire, the theme was Fresh Fire. And what we really believed, and you heard me talk about it many times, is that God was getting ready before the experience, and in the experience we saw it come to pass, that God was going to drop new things on us and prepare us to go to higher heights and go to new levels. That's what Fresh Fire was all about. It was how will God speak to us and how will God take us to somewhere new. As we prepared for Fresh Fire, we began to ask all the questions. We wanted to clear our spirits of all the things that were blocking us from getting what it was that God had for us, so that when the fire fell, we were in position to receive what God had for us. You said, okay, I understand that, but how does that relate to what we're talking about in Exodus? Well, you know the story. We talked about it last week. That website again is newpsalmist.org, www.newpsalmist.org. So, in the Exodus story, the Israelites, the Hebrews, are in captivity. There has arisen a king, a Pharaoh, that did not know Joseph. And because there were so many Hebrews in the land, he enslaved them, put them to work, hard labor. And because of that, these people that had the covenant with God were now in captivity. But as I shared, Moses rose up. God tapped Moses and said, Moses, you will be the one to lead your people out of captivity. And he goes to Pharaoh and says, let my people go. God had new things for his people. God wanted to drop fresh fire on his chosen folk. That's the great thing I love about what this theme, Fresh Fire, is that there's so many times in Scripture we see how people live stories similar to ours. The Hebrews, God wanted to give them new things. God had a covenant with them. God had a promised land for them. But before they could receive it, before they could tap into that fresh fire, they first had to get out of captivity. And that's so fitting for us coming in right out of this fresh fire experience, because we've seen a glimpse of what God can do. But in order to fully have what it is that God wants in our lives, we have to come out of our captivity. For many of us, captivity means different things. For some, captivity is in a relationship. There's a relationship that you're in that you know God does not want you to be in. It's blocking you from receiving all the things that God has for you. But until you get out of that relationship, you can experience that fresh fire in your life. For some people, it may be a job situation where there are things on the job blocking you from getting that fresh fire. You're spending so much energy, so much effort dealing with it instead of experience the new things that God has for us. One of the reasons we encourage everybody to write down the questions, and even now to still pray about what it is that's blocking the fresh fire from falling in your life, is because there's so many times God is just waiting. He's hovering above us, waiting to drop fresh fire into our lives. But there are things in its place blocking it. Instead of spending time with God, we have to spend time putting out fires. Instead of experience God in new ways and having new encounters with him, we have to go through different storms and trials that we won't let go of. Many of us know what it's like to have something in our life. It can be a relationship, it can be a job, it could be a situation that you're dealing with that you don't want to let go. You know it's not good for you. You know it's not what God called you to do, but you just don't want to let it go. Whether it's because you don't want to have the tough conversation, whether it's because you're scared that you're not going to know how to make it without that situation, whatever it may be, you just don't want to let it go. But until you let it go, you can't experience what God has for you. That's the great thing about God. God gives us free will to make choices, to make decisions. God is not going to force fresh fire on us. God does not force anything on us. God is a just God. We have the power and authority to make decisions in our life. But we must learn within ourselves to make a decision to open ourselves up to receive what it is that God has for us. In this story, the Egyptians have put the Israelites, the Hebrews, in captivity. And because of that, they feel as though they are not connected to God anymore. We talked about it last week, but they come to the realization that God is still their God, and he's still the God that made the covenant with them, and he cries out to them. And when he cries out to them, that's when God remembers them and raises up a leader to bring them out of that situation. No matter what you're in, all you have to do is cry out to God. And when you cry out to God, God remembers the covenant he's made with you. And God will send something, somebody, something to you to get you out of that situation so that you can experience the fresh fire in your life. The Israelites are now in a place where God has stuff for them. He has a promised land for them. He has riches for them. He has everything they need. There's a land of milk and honey that's waiting for them, but they can't experience it right now. So they cry out to God and they say, Lord, remember us and remember the covenant. We are ready for the fresh fire you have for our lives. They pray that prayer. Moses comes, and then there's a struggle. Many of us know about these. If you've been in any Bible study lesson, if you saw the movie The Prince of Egypt, if you saw anything, you know about the struggle which is in the 10 plagues. Whenever God has fresh fire for us, the enemy will do whatever it takes to stop us from getting it. God sends Moses back with Aaron. They go in, one plague doesn't work. And a lot of us know about that is we get excited, we think it's going to happen, but not yet. Another plague, still not free. Another plague, still not free. 9 plagues, no freedom. And then the last one comes. God sends the last plague. The plague, you see it sometimes, the plague of the firstborn, where now all the Egyptians and anybody who does not have blood over their doorposts, the death angel comes by and kills the firstborn in all the households of the Egyptians. And now, after this struggle, they've gone through 9 plagues, but this 10th plague is what changes everything. And now Pharaoh says, y'all got to go, get out of here. We fearful of our life. Just pack up, go right now, get away from us. And now, the chain of events that allows them to experience their fresh fire has now been started. Let's look at this for a second and put it into our own lives. In order to receive the fresh fire that God has for us, there's going to be a struggle. One of the things I've learned, I'm 27 years old. I'll be 28 January 29th next year. So if anybody wants to give me a gift now, go ahead. Let me know if you need to know what I like, just shoot me a message on Twitter. You can go ahead and give me a gift now. But in my 27 years on this earth, one of the things I've learned as a truth is that whenever God is getting ready to do something new in my life, there's always going to be a struggle that tries to stop me from getting there. For the Israelites, the Hebrews, it was the plagues. 10 plagues go by. 9 plagues rather go by, and there's still no movement. Still no movement. They think they know that God's going to get them what they asked for. But when God starts to move in miraculous ways, it's not happening. And many of us have the testimony that God showed up, but it didn't happen fast enough. We prayed, Lord, deliver me from this relationship. But God didn't deliver me quick enough. Lord, I need you to work some stuff because the sickness in my body is stopping me from being able to do the things I want to do. But it seemed as though the medicine that the doctor kept giving was not enough. If you've ever been in a place where God told you fresh fire was coming, but it seemed like it just wouldn't happen fast enough, just tap the screen. I want to send up the hearts. I want to see how many other people have been in a similar situation where you knew God was taking you to fresh fire, but it seemed as though things that should have moved out of the way just kept coming up. Day after day, new things rose up. And because of that, you weren't able to experience the fresh fire. It would not come on your life. It seemed as though once God told you it was coming, there was just obstacle after obstacle after obstacle that blocked it from coming to your life. Moses stands before Pharaoh. Just paint the picture. You know, I inherit this from my father, Bishop Thomas, the best narrative preacher there ever was to walk the face of the earth. So I inherit this from him where we can't just read the Bible. I know this is Bible study, this ain't preaching, but we got to dig into this. Let's put ourselves in this story. We are 10th generation Hebrews. Our parents and their parents and their parents have all been born in Egypt, and they've been in captivity. And now we are rising. We're second generation, third generation, born as slaves into this thing. So we don't know about the promised land. We don't know about this God. We heard the stories, but we don't know about it. This is the stories you hear sitting around the Thanksgiving table when everybody talks about that one relative who was super rich, or that one relative who played professional basketball, or that one relative who owned a whole bunch of land, but nobody ever saw them. This is what the story they were living. And now they prayed out, and God sends them somebody back to stand before Pharaoh and say, let my people go. Think about how exciting that was. They were like, yeah, we're finally getting out of this. But God don't do it right away. How many times have we been in that place? We were excited. We say, yes, this is going to happen. But then it doesn't. Day after day, plague after plague. They send flies, that don't do it. Water turn to blood, that don't do it. Gnats, that don't do it. Frogs, none of the plagues get the job. So by the time they get to the 9th plague, they're not as excited anymore. They got up all the other times. They knew they were getting fresh fire. God said they were going to get the fresh fire. They were getting out of this situation. They were going to be out of captivity into the promised land. But thing after thing, plague after plague didn't work. And now they're stuck there. This is the thing we have to realize. They did not know the promised land. So they did not know anything but captivity. So they had no frame of reference of what freedom would really be like. We see it later on. I'll tease it now because we'll touch into it later. Even when they get out of Egypt, they want to go back. Because when you've never been free, when you've never had fresh fire really fall on you, you don't know how to act when you get it. That's why so many times we see these stories where people win the lottery and they get all these millions of dollars, and then 2 years later, they're back on a reality show talking about how they're broke now. Because they don't know how to handle the blessing when it comes in their life. So for these 9 plagues, they keep getting excited, but now nothing happening. So now they don't have a frame of reference to say, I'm just going to hold on because I want that freedom again. They don't know what freedom's like. So they're saying, well, I don't really have a connection to this God. So, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But whatever. Because many of us have been in that place. Well, we thought God said, you're going to get this. We heard God promise us fresh fire. We heard God say you're going to have something greater than this. But when it didn't happen right away, we just said, well, I'm used to living the way I am, and I've accepted the life for where it is. That's many of our testimonies. That there was a point where we had to look in the mirror and be truthful with ourselves. And say no matter how much we wanted God to do something for us, no matter how much we believed God was going to make a way and change our situation, we had really accepted and resigned to the fact that we would always be where we are. Think about this. 430 years they're in Egypt. And it takes them 430 years after the death of Joseph, about 400 or so, to finally cry out to God and say, God, can you get us out of here? For 400 plus years, they were resigned to being there. And it wasn't until, for whatever reason, at this specific time, that they cried out to God and said, God, maybe you can help us now. 9 plagues go by. Nothing happens. 9 plagues go by. The hopes go up, but nothing happens. But then that 10th plague comes. All the firstborn are killed. And that's when everything turns around. And the preacher in me just has to pause right here for just one moment and leave in a parenthetical shouting point right there. You never know when the moment's going to come. All you got to do is trust God enough and prepare now. So when that moment comes, you are ready to walk out of your place of captivity and into the place that God has for you. If you know that though there have been times where it seemed like it was taking too long, but you know that it came one point out the blue oftentimes where God showed up for you and showed you that he had a plan for you. And all you had to do was walk into it. Just tap the screen right there. I want to see how many people have a testimony that there was one specific moment in your life where God showed right up. You might not have been expecting it. You might not have been waiting for it, but you just said a long time ago, God, I trust you. And when God showed up, all you had to do was walk right into it. The Egyptians have said, y'all got to get out of here. Tell the Hebrews to get away. We can't take this no more. Y'all killing us. If y'all stay, we're going to die. Get up right now. That's where the feast of the Passover that we hear our Jewish brothers and sisters, they commemorate every year. This is the story that the Passover is commemorating. The reason they eat the unleavened bread or the matzah is because they had to get out so fast that they could not wait for the yeast to rise. That's what it comes from. Because literally, the Egyptians rose up and said, y'all got to get out of here right now. The text says that they even plummeted them. They took everything they wanted. They said, give us gold, give us silver. And they said, just take it so you can get out of here. Isn't it amazing that when God shows up, not only does he give you what you asked for, but he also gives you some extra things that you didn't anticipate, but he gives it to you just because he is showing you that he has a plan for you and that God can do anything but fail. They tell them they get the gold, they get everything, and they get to go out. And this sets off the chain of events that leads even through these 40 years until the place where they get to the promised land and the fresh fire fully falls on them. And you see, this thing I love about the story in Exodus is that there's so many ebb and flows to it. There's so many ups and downs. But at the end of the story, everything is geared towards God's chosen people getting the promise that he has for them. That's the thing, everything that God takes us through. Everything that we endure as children of God is designed to get us to the very thing that God has for our lives. God sees our ending before our beginning. We see things linearly. We see this step, then the next step, then the next step. But God sees the end and the beginning as one big continuum. In God's mind, everything is working together. We've been singing the song in New Psalmist. All things work together for my good. He's intentional, never failing, because God knows where he's taking us. God even knows every obstacle that we'll have to face. Oftentimes, we get bent out of shape because the obstacle's there. But the thing we ought to shout about is that the obstacle may be there, but the end is still there. And if God knows our ending, and if all we have to do is trust in the one who knows our ending to get through every obstacle, all we have to do is fully lean and depend on God. Because in doing that, he has the roadmap. God already has the map for us to get where we need to go. All we have to do is trust in him. That's what this Exodus story teaches us, is that it's not always going to happen right away. Moses, as I shared with you last year, Moses' life is divided into 40-year segments. The first 40 years is as he's growing up and maturing in Pharaoh's house. The next 40 years is as he's out and preparing himself to go back and to lead his people into their freedom. And then the last 40 years he goes back, and then also links up with the 40 years in the wilderness. He goes back home. He tells Pharaoh, let the people go. God uses him to lead his people out. And then the next 40 years is the last segment. I'm sure Moses wished it happened quicker. It takes 40 years for chains of events. He basically has three different lives. First life, he's a Hebrew. He grows up as an Egyptian. Though he's still a Hebrew, he has all the privileges and the rights of an Egyptian. But when he does something wrong, they remember what he looks like and remember his heritage. And now he goes from the category of just about Egyptian to now a full-fledged Hebrew who is wanted for murder. He goes away. And in that time, God's preparing him. He takes on a wife. He has a son. He has a new family. He has a new occupation. He's out there. God is preparing him, maturing him, giving him more life situations so that when he goes back, he has different skills. He knows how to communicate. He understands the dynamics that everybody's going to be dealing with. God can send him to lead the people out of captivity without understanding how some stuff worked. That's why God takes us through situations to prepare us, not only so that we understand ourselves, but also so that we are able to have compassion on others. Moses was able to have compassion because he understood what it was like to have a family, to have in-laws, to have a wife, to have children. So when he went back, he understood the dynamics at play in all of these lives of the fellow Hebrews. So he knew some things. He knew how to communicate some things. He knew how to have certain conversations that you only learn how to have when you've been through these different testing and been through these different seasons. In my own life, there were things in ministry I didn't know how to deal with until I got married. And then I'd been married for 2 years. And then once we had our first baby that you just saw, Ava, there were new things I understood how to deal with. For instance, I understand the value of an online Bible study because most of the times when we're in Bible study, Ava's upstairs asleep while Candace is in discipleship. So I've learned how these different tools are valuable, and God takes us through different situations, takes us through different times in life, different seasons to prepare us to understand things that we didn't know before. And that's what Moses' story was all about. Because when God was going to bring him back to lead the people out so they could get ready to experience this fresh fire, he had to go through these situations so he would understand how to communicate. He would understand how to have compassion. He would understand not to get too upset with people for doubting him. Because it's not that they didn't have faith, but it was just that they could not understand how they could go to their children and say, I'm not sure how you're going to eat. When they're asking, Mommy, Daddy, I need something to drink, and they don't have no water. He had to understand and say, well, no, it's not time for me, as President Obama said, to just pop off on them, but just to say, no, I got to have some compassion, so that I understand some of the things they're dealing with. And so God had prepared him for this moment. And he is now able to tell them to pack everything up and leave this captivity. God takes them out. You know the story of the Red Sea. They get to the banks. They're not sure. Some of them are doubting, saying we're going to go back. But Moses said, no, God brought us this far. He did not bring us this far to leave us now. God told him to stretch out his rod. And all night the waters are backed up. They get to walk through on dry land. And once they come through, Pharaoh's army has changed their minds. Pharaoh says, I told y'all could go, but now I changed my mind because I just remembered how much free labor y'all were. And I remembered how easy it was to tell y'all to do stuff versus telling my own people to do stuff. So now I'm going to go back and get y'all because though I was scared before, I really need y'all now because I don't want to deal with the newness that I'm going to have to change my administration to now have my own people building my monuments. So he says, let's go out and get them. Enemies coming after them. Once all of them get through on dry land, God releases the water, covers them all up. They are now in position to get their fresh fire. And this is the thing I love about God. And this is where we're going to close today. And this, if we were in church right now, I tell Tavon to go get him the organ because this will be the close right here. When God takes you to your place to receive fresh fire, you never have to worry about the very things that held you back from it before. Because the very things that stopped you from trying to get your fresh fire, God will so ordain them and orchestrate it so that though they tried to hold you back, the waters will stop them. Not only will they not be able to get you now, but no longer will you even have to worry about it because God will so clean things up that the thing that used to have you bound not only can't bind you again, but no longer exists, so it can't torment you. And that's the thing I love about God, is that though he does not always move when we want him, though God does not always show up at the time we believe is perfect, whenever God has now put us in position to receive our fresh fire, there is no enemy that can stop us from getting it. There's no attack of the devil that can hold us back. But once God says this is the time, this is the moment, this is the season that you are going to experience this fresh fire, I will so work things out in my divine plan that the very thing that was trying to pull you back will be washed away in the sea, never to be seen from again, never to hold you back again, so that you can walk freely, not worry about the old demons that used to hold you back. And that's the thing I shout about when I read this story, because God has led his people out. He did not forget about them. He had a promise with them. And he says, because I had this covenant with Abraham, I'm still holding it true to you. And I will lead you out. But not only will I lead you out, the thing that used to have you bound is going to be washed away, so it can no longer come back and get you. And there's somebody watching this Periscope today who may be saying, I want to take that first step. God's just saying, if you trust God enough to take the first step, God will orchestrate your steps. Because the Bible says the steps of a righteous man, steps of a righteous woman are ordered by the Lord. Trust in God, and God will work everything out for you. That's where I want to end today, because the children of God, the children of Israel have come out. They are now out of Egyptian captivity, and they now are able to put themselves in the posture for fresh fire. But I want to throw a monkey wrench in the plan, and this is where I'm going to close. I'm going to close on a cliffhanger. We'll pick it up next week. We're even going to talk about this in the Facebook group. So I encourage you to go, as soon as we get off today, to go right to facebook.com/groups/NPBCMM. Make sure you follow me on Periscope. I may jump up with a Periscope next week before our Wednesday session to really dig into this, because we're going to finish out these first 5 books and in the next 2 weeks. So I want to make sure you guys get this. Let's throw the monkey wrench in there. God has put them in place to get their fresh fire. The enemy that used to have them bound is no longer exists. God has wiped it off the face of the earth. But some kind of way, they get stuck in this in-between season. God did a lot for them. He brought them out. But now they stuck in the in-between season. The fresh fire, God's getting ready to drop it. He's shown them glimpses of what he's going to do. But because of some decisions they made, because they did not trust, God blocked them from fully experiencing the promise that he has on their life. I'm going to leave you with this one today. Don't let God work a miracle in your midst, and after the miracle, you start doubting the very person who worked the miracle for you. Don't let God put you in the place where the fire can just fall, and you start questioning the very one who has just put you in that position where you can receive what it is he has for you. If you're wondering where we're going with this, you got to stay tuned, because we're going to pick it up. Facebook address again is facebook.com/groups/NPBCMM. If you're on Facebook, just search Millennial Ministry New MP. That's New Psalmist. Of course, follow me on Twitter at MINJThomas. Follow me on Instagram at MINJThomas. And you can follow me right here on Periscope. Swipe to the right, click on my picture, click follow. I hope that you guys enjoyed this session today. We're going to pick back up. We're rolling right on through, getting you guys a good foundation of this book we call the Bible. I encourage you to make sure you continue to read through, reread. If you got a question about something, post it right in the Facebook group. That's what we're here for, to answer those questions, to make sure that you guys are clear on everything and that you're understanding what it is that builds the foundation to our faith. Because once we get past these first 5 books, then we'll pick up and start going to the books of history. And that's where we really start to see some new trends and start to pick up on more stories that you guys have heard about through your studies in church, through just watching in Bible study, through Sunday school, through just hearing stories about the Bible, a lot of the prophets, a lot of the great men and women that we hear of in Scripture. So, of course, thank you guys again for joining in on this special Fresh Fire edition of the Bible Basics class. Once again, go to newpsalmist.org and you can click on the Media Center to watch the 3 nights of Fresh Fire. The Wednesday night may be up as soon as the website recaches is loaded. I was just watching before I got on here, and it's so exciting to watch. We had Vashawn Mitchell with us last night. He tore the house down. Then we hurry up and rebuilt it, and Bishop Paul Sylvester Morton completely demolished it. They gave all the staff off today because the church is not standing, because Bishop Morton tore it down last night. So hopefully it's rebuilt, so when we get in there tomorrow, we can get back to work. So thank you guys again. I can't wait to share with you soon. Of course, share this message, this Periscope, right with your friends and followers on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, everybody, so they can come back in and see a little bit of the fresh fire edition of Bible Basics. So until next week, y'all continue to stay blessed. Chat with you soon.